I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey Patriot Warrior fam, I'm Face, and these are the histories that America forgot. According to Wikipedia, quote, under President Antonio López de Santa Anna, the Mexican government banned slavery and immigration as it shifted away from a federalist model to a more centralized government. Santa Anna's new policies, including the ban on slavery in 1829, the ban on immigration in 1830, and the revocation of the Constitution of 1824, in early 1835 incited immigrants, slave owners, and Federalists throughout the nation to revolt. The Mexican army quickly put down revolts in the Mexican interior, including a brutal suppression of militias in Oaxaca and Zacatecas. Unrest continued in the northeastern Mexican state of Coahuila y Texas. The area that bordered the United States, known as Texas, was populated primarily by English-speaking settlers, known as Texians. The Texian immigrants refused to comply with Mexico's new bans on slavery and described Santa Anna's attempts to free their slaves as, quote, piratical attacks, end quote, to take their, quote, property. In October, the Texians took up arms in what became known as the Texas Revolution. The following month, Texians declared themselves part of a Mexican state independent from Coahuila and created a provisional state government which permitted slavery, forbade any attempt to ban slavery, and included some principles of the Constitution of 1824, which had authorized immigration. By the end of the year, all Mexican troops had been killed or expelled from Texas. Leading Federalists in Mexico advocated a plan to attack Mexican troops in Matamoros, a major Mexican port. Members of the General Council, the interim Texas governing body, was enamored with the idea of a Matamoros expedition. They hoped it would inspire the Federalist states to revolt and keep the bored Texian troops from deserting the army. Most importantly, it would move the war zone outside of Texas. The council officially approved the plan on December 25th, and on December 30th, Frank W. Johnson, the commander of the Volunteer Army, and his aide, James Grant, took the bulk of the army and all of the supplies to Goliad to prepare for the expedition. Determined to quash the rebellion, Santa Anna began assembling a large force to restore order. By the end of 1835, his army numbered 6,019 soldiers. In late December, at his behest, Congress passed the Tomel Decree, declaring that any foreigners fighting against Mexican troops, quote, will be deemed pirates and dealt with as such, being citizens of no nation presently at war with the Republic and fighting under no recognized flag. End quote. In the early 19th century, captured pirates were executed immediately. The resolution thus gave the Mexican army permission to take no prisoners in the war against the Texians. Santa Anna personally led the bulk of his troops inland to San Antonio de Bejar and ordered General José de Urrea to lead 550 troops along the Atoscosita Road toward Goliad. Urrea's efforts to quell the rebellion along the Texas Gulf Coast have become known as the Goliad Campaign. The Texas Provisional Government had named Sam Houston the commander of a new regular army in Texas, but without authority over the volunteers who reported to Johnson. The Provisional Governor, Henry Smith, opposed the Matamoros expedition and ordered Houston to find a way to disband it. In a rousing speech to the volunteers, Houston dissuaded the bulk of the men from continuing their mission. Many left the army while others joined the troops stationed under Houston's second-in-command, James Fannin, at Presidio La Bahia in Goliad. By the end of January 1836, only 70 men remained with Johnson and Grant. Most of these volunteers were Americans or Europeans who had arrived in Texas after the Texas Revolution had commenced. Urrea reached Matamoros on January 31st. A committed Federalist, he soon convinced other Federalists in the area that the Texians' ultimate goal was secession, and their attempt to spark a Federalist revolt in Matamoros was just a method of diverting attention from themselves. Urrea's force crossed into Texas on February 18th. Meanwhile, Mexican double agents continued to assure Johnson and Grant that they would be able to take Matamoros easily. Despite hearing rumors that the Mexican army was approaching, Grant and Johnson chose to take their men south of the Nueces River into territory belonging to the state of Tamaulipas to search for horses to buy, steal, or otherwise gather. About February 21st, Johnson and part of the group began driving about 100 horses back into Texas. The rest of the men remained with Grant, ostensibly to look for more horses. In actuality, he was attempting to rendezvous with his allies near Matamoros to determine whether Federalists were still willing to rise up against the Mexican army. Johnson's men arrived on February 24th in San Patricio, an Irish settlement about 100 miles north of Matamoros. Many of the San Patricio residents were Centralists, loyal to the Mexican government. Johnson sent 12 men to guard the horses at the ranch of Julian de la Garza, approximately 4 miles outside of the town, while the rest garrisoned in San Patricio. The weather was frigid and the men's clothes were threadbare. Confident that Grant would alert him if Mexican troops were in the area, Johnson chose not to appoint sentries, instead allowing all of the men to take shelter. The Mexican troops easily followed the trail left by Johnson's herd. On February 25th, Urrea led 100 dragoons and 100 infantry to corner the Texians. By 10 p.m., scouts reported that Texian troops were established in San Patricio. The Mexican soldiers continued marching through the cold night. 6 of the troops died of exposure. Urrea instructed 3 officers to go to San Patricio, dressed as civilians, and warn the Centralists that the Mexican army was approaching. In an effort to reduce casualties and property damage, Centralists were asked to declare their loyalties by leaving lanterns burning in their windows. Locals also gave the officers precise information on which buildings housed Texian soldiers. Urrea sent 30 men under Captain Rafael Retalia to De la Garza's ranch to surprise the Texians camped there. At 3:30 a.m. on February 26, the remaining Mexican soldiers entered San Patricio. One group of Texians surrendered immediately when they awoke to find themselves surrounded by Mexican troops. When another party of Texians was asked to surrender, they instead opened fire, killing a Mexican officer and wounding 2 other soldiers. Determined to prevent more casualties, Mexican dragoons prepared to set the house on fire to force the Texians out. At this point, several Texians called that they were surrendering. As they left the house, they were shot or lanced. By chance, Johnson and 3 of his men, Lieutenant Daniel Toller and Sergeants Love and Miller, were still awake and discussing tactics. Mexican troops had been told that the house where Johnson was quartered was one of their targets, yet a lamp burned in the window, signaling that this was the home of a loyalist. Out of an abundance of caution, a group of troops knocked on the door. Before the Texians could open the door, they heard the gunfire from the town square. Toller looked out the window and saw uniformed troops on the porch. Without opening the door, he told the soldiers in Spanish that there were no troops there, but he would open the door momentarily. The fighting moved into the street, and soldiers who had been guarding the back door of the house rushed around to the front. Johnson, Toller, Love, and Miller dashed out the back door and escaped. At the De La Garza ranch, the Texians had been taking turns standing sentry. In the cold, all of the sentries had fallen asleep. Pritalia's soldiers opened fire on the sleeping men, injuring 2 Texians. In the subsequent fight, 4 Texians died. 8 men, 3 Americans and 5 Tejanos, Mexican ethnicity Texans, were taken prisoner and several escaped. The fighting ended within 15 minutes. 6 Texians escaped, including Johnson, Toller, Miller, Love, and John F. Beck. They made their way on foot to Refugio, where they sent a messenger to Fannin at Goliad, 75 miles north, to let him know that Urrea's army was close. The survivors reached Goliad on February 29th. After filling out an official report on the battle, Johnson, Toller, and Love left the army and went to San Felipe. The remaining survivors joined Fannin's troops and were later killed in the Goliad massacre. 11 Texians were killed outright, 5 suffered mortal wounds, and 21 others were taken prisoner. 6 local men were also arrested for aiding the rebellion. Some historians report that most were executed immediately in the town square. According to reports by Johnson and another Texian, Urrea questioned several of the prisoners, and there were reports that the men were tortured. Within 72 hours, all of the prisoners were dead. 1 Mexican soldier was killed and 4 were wounded. Urrea's official records state that the battle was fought at Fort Lipantitlan, on the other side of the Nueces River. Texian accounts are consistent that the fighting occurred in town and at the De La Garza ranch. While Urrea waited for reinforcements before beginning his march towards Goliad, his advance party searched for Grant and the remaining Texians. After learning of Grant's whereabouts from local spies, on March 2nd, Mexican dragoons ambushed the Texians at Agua Dulce Creek.
I can hear the drums in the distance. I can feel the fear, the resistance. Everything can change in an instant. You might stay alive if you listen. Your best friend is your instincts, don't think. Trust me, everything can change in a blink. Hearts race, I can feel my heart pounding. Hold our heads up and this the chant we'll be shouting. This is war, you won't take me. This is war, you can't break me. It's just me, no saving. I'm the only one who can save me. So stand strong, stand tall, stay up, don't fall. Give it everything you own. No fears, no walls, just fight, no laws. Push yourself to the limits, it's the fight for it all.
Then I'm on top of it, I got fuel for days, it's a weapons that you can't stop, yeah, I won't think twice, into the enemy won't make it out alive. I got a full supply of energy and might hit the wrong side, Here I go, taking every single blow to the dome, never slow, pushing through it cause you know that I chose to be known, legendary, I'ma show everybody in this battle that comes close, they exposed, yeah.
me. This is war, you can't break me. It's just me, no saving. I'm the only one who could save me. So stand strong, stand